Someone had a perfect checkup last week. They ran, they slept, they did everything right. Their heart stopped this morning. No warning, no second chance. And right now, yours is next in line. You've been told your heart is loyal, that it beats for you, that it works for you. 3 billion beats in a lifetime, and not one missed, not one. It's the symbol of love, of courage, of life itself. Cultures have built entire mythologies around it. But your heart has never once asked for your permission. It doesn't consult your brain before it beats. It doesn't wait for your instruction. It was already beating before you had a brain capable of thought, before you had any identity at all. And right now, as you watch this, it is making decisions about your survival completely independently of you. The question isn't whether your heart is working hard. The question is, who is it working for? Picture it now. A fist-sized organ, deep red, glistening, suspended inside your chest. It weighs less than a pound, about 300 grams, less than a can of soup. And yet it moves enough blood every single day to fill a tanker truck. Every minute, it pushes 5 liters through 60,000 miles of vessels. If you laid your circulatory system end to end, it would wrap around the earth twice. The sound it makes, lub-dub, is 2 sets of valves slamming shut in perfect sequence. It's been making that sound since you were an 8-week-old embryo. It will make it roughly 3 billion times before you die. It is the most elegant pump ever engineered. It never rests. Not once. Not for a single second in your entire life. It is perfect. It is elegant. And it is exactly that reliability that should terrify you. Here is what your cardiologist almost certainly didn't tell you. Your heart has its own nervous system, not borrowed from your brain, not regulated by your spinal cord. Its own, completely embedded within the cardiac tissue. Over 40,000 neurons, organized into a network called the intrinsic cardiac nervous system. Neuroscientists at the HeartMath Institute have been studying it for decades. What they found rewrote how we think about the organ entirely. Your heart doesn't just receive signals from your brain, it sends them back. And there are more signals going from heart to brain than from brain to heart. It processes information independently. It learns, it remembers, it adapts. When surgeons perform a heart transplant, they sever every connection between the donor heart and the recipient's nervous system. The transplanted heart still beats. It regulates its own rhythm. It responds to the new body's stress hormones on its own terms. Hours after removal from the chest, kept in the right conditions, an isolated heart continues to beat. Not because something outside it is telling it to, because it has its own instruction set, and it has been running that instruction set independently, autonomously, without your knowledge or consent, every second of your life. But that's only the surface. The most dangerous thing about your heart isn't that it can stop. It's that when it stops, it almost never warns you first. Here is what the data actually says. In more than half of sudden cardiac deaths, the first symptom is the cardiac arrest itself. Not chest pain, not shortness of breath, not a dramatic warning sign. The first symptom is death. The mechanism behind this has a name: atherosclerosis. It begins in most people in adolescence. Autopsies performed on teenagers killed in accidents, healthy teenagers, active teenagers, routinely reveal fatty streaks already forming along the walls of the coronary arteries. Not disease, not pathology yet, just the beginning of a process that will operate silently for the next 30 to 50 years. The plaques build slowly. They don't block the artery gradually in a way your body would detect. They grow beneath the surface of the arterial wall. They are invisible to you, invisible to most standard tests. And then one day, after decades of perfect silence, a plaque ruptures. Within minutes, your blood clots at the site of the rupture. The artery closes. The cardiac muscle fed by that artery begins to die. You have, on average, between 90 minutes and 4 hours before the damage becomes irreversible. This is not a process that accelerates slowly at the end. It is silent for decades and then catastrophic in minutes. What medicine spent decades refusing to fully admit is that the most reliable predictor of a heart attack is not your cholesterol number. It is not your blood pressure. It is not your weight. It is the stability of your plaques, which cannot be measured by any routine checkup you have ever had. Now consider the paradox that no one in cardiology has fully resolved. Elite endurance athletes, marathon runners, Tour de France cyclists, iron distance triathletes have hearts that appear by every external measure to be the most protected on Earth. Enlarged left ventricles, lower resting heart rates, extraordinary cardiac output. But long-term imaging studies of professional athletes have revealed something that changes the entire story. A significant percentage of athletes who have trained intensively for decades show signs of myocardial fibrosis, scarring of the cardiac muscle. Not from disease, from the training itself, from the cumulative stress of millions of extreme exertions. The same adaptation that makes an athlete's heart powerful appears in excess to create structural vulnerabilities that increase the risk of fatal arrhythmia. The organ that was hardened by effort becomes, paradoxically, more susceptible to the kind of electrical misfiring that kills instantly and without warning. Researchers at St. George's University of London published findings suggesting that the upper limit of cardiac adaptation, the point at which training stops being protective and starts being destructive, may be lower than the endurance sports world has ever acknowledged. And here is what we still don't know. We cannot identify in advance who crosses that line. We cannot predict whose adaptive heart becomes a liability. The question that cardiology has not answered is this: is the heart you built with discipline the same one that will eventually betray you because of it? We don't know yet. In 1912, a physician named James Bryan Herrick published a paper describing, for the first time, a patient who survived what Herrick recognized as a coronary thrombosis, a blood clot in the heart's own arteries. The patient had survived. That was, in itself, nearly unthinkable. Herrick's colleagues dismissed the paper. The idea that a heart attack could be identified in a living patient and survived was so outside the medical consensus that the paper was largely ignored for years. It wasn't until the 1920s that Herrick's work was reconsidered. And it wasn't until the 1960s that coronary care units, dedicated facilities for monitoring and treating heart attacks, became standard in hospitals. For the first half of the 20th century, hundreds of thousands of people survived heart attacks that were never identified, never treated, never even understood to be what they were. They were sent home to rest, told they had indigestion, told they were anxious. Many survived, many didn't. The gap between what the heart was doing and what medicine understood about it was, for most of human history, almost total. We have closed that gap, partially. And what we have learned, because of people like Herrick, who risked his reputation on a paper no one believed, is what you are about to understand about yourself. Your heart has beaten approximately 2.5 billion times since you were born. It has never rested, never taken a day off, never asked what you wanted. And somewhere inside its walls, right now, a process is unfolding that began before you could speak, before you could think, before you had any understanding of what you were. You carry decades of silent accumulation inside you. The choices made in your 20s are written into your arterial walls in a language that doesn't announce itself until one ordinary morning, on a run, at a desk, in the middle of a sentence. When the thing that has never failed you, fails. The heart is the only organ we made a symbol of love. And it is also the only organ that can end you without a single word of warning. You are alive because of something inside you that has its own nervous system, its own memory, its own agenda, that has been operating independently of everything you call yourself since before you were a self at all. And the most unsettling thing is not that it can stop. It's that you would never have known it was lying. There is a system in your body that never works in silence. It screams at you constantly. Pain, pressure, heat, cold, and you have been misreading every signal it sends your entire life. The pain you feel is not where the damage is. What you think is protecting you may be the thing destroying you from the inside. That's the next video. If you made it here, you already know Dark Anatomy doesn't let you leave with the same certainty you came in with. Subscribe, because what comes next is worse. Keep looking inside.